Live. We are
We are
live.
live. We are live. We are live. Hello. Oh, are you sure? Are you sure we're live?
100%.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll do. Hi, OAC. We're up to our usual start.
Only 8 minutes late. That's not bad.
Only 8 minutes late. Once again, technical difficulties, and it was my fault.
No, it was Bruce's fault.
Oh, it was Bruce. Okay, well, I like to take the blame because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. Okay, let's get started. Hello.
Unlike the current government.
Hi, my name is Karen Boite, and I am part of the Ontario Autism Coalition's Board of Directors. And from time to time, we host Facebook live chats. The Ontario Autism Coalition is a volunteer political advocacy group. And our motto is, awareness is nice, but action is better. As advocates, each of us have come to the realization that change can only happen when the political will in this province directs itself to ensure that permanent, evidence-based, government-funded services for individuals with autism and are guaranteed for individuals with autism and families. Our theme this evening, the Ontario Autism Program. Is it a trick or a treat? Welcome to a cross-section of the belly of the beast, and the people that you see on your screen are members of the Ontario Autism Program's working group, our OAC working group, and no one has their ears to the ground like these guys. We also have members of the working group watching online, so feel free to post questions as we go along. And if you see an admin responding to your question, you're in very good hands. Special shout out to Lily, who is smarter than all of us combined. If you're chatting with her, you're in very good hands. Earlier today, we launched a short video that runs through the Ford government's greatest hits concerning the Ontario Autism Program. And this video was designed to be a companion piece for tonight's conversation. You'll find it on our YouTube page. So check it out if you have a chance. Alrighty then, let's get started. I'm going to begin with our president, Angela Brandt. There you are, Angela. Oh, nice background, Angela.
Hi, everybody. Hi, OAC.
Good evening, Angela. Angela is our statistician at the OAC. You're our numbers lady. So here's a number for you, 50,000.
Yes, that is roughly the number of children currently on the, registered with the Ontario Autism Program. Functionally, it's about the number of children that are currently on the wait list waiting for autism services.
When Ford was elected, how many children were in full-time programs?
When he was elected, it was over 10,000. I know that when Lisa McLeod blew up the program, the number was exactly 10,365 who were receiving a behavior plan, which is functionally what we're calling now the legacy program, which is full-time needs-based therapy.
So how many legacy kids do we have now after 3 years with Ford?
Well, we don't know exactly because the website that publishes the waitlist numbers is extremely opaque, but we do know from transcripts back in August, that number is roughly 3,800. It's probably slightly lower now.
Okay, so
we'll say between 3,000 and 4,000.
Okay. And how when we talk about 50,000 kids on the wait list, do all of these kids need full-time therapy programs?
No. We do know, based on old data from Hawaii, that there are a proportion of kids that will do fine with programs that are intermittent, that will address whatever need they have, and then they can move on. Autism is a spectrum. That's why they call it autism spectrum disorder. Some kids need more support, some kids need less support. What proportion need full-time programming? In Ontario, we don't know exactly, but anywhere between 20 and 50% of the wait list will need full-time programming.
Do you know how many autistic children there are in Ontario?
It would be roughly 50,000, actually. The number of children that are registered with the OAP is pretty much approximately the number of children with autism in the province. We know that the incidence rate for autism is about 1 to 2% of the Canadian population. And within the province, there's roughly 150,000 people, give or take, with autism. And about 1/3 of those are children.
Okay, Scott Corbett, could you unpack a few things for me? I'm confused. How did we get to 50,000 children on the wait list? Now, you've written extensively about the OAP, and Lily, if you're watching, I hope that if you could post some of his articles, I would appreciate that. Premier Ford says that he has doubled the OAP budget to 600 million. And yet the wait list has more than doubled from 23,000 at the beginning of his reign to over 50,000 kids. How did this come about?
Well, I can give you one number as to how this has come about, and that number is 3. 3 years. 3 years it's been since Lisa MacLeod and the Ford government froze entry into the Ontario Autism Program. So that was the program that they inherited. And there was a wait list, but they stopped admitting new entrants into the OAP 3 years ago. And since then, it's been false start, hiccup after hiccup. I can't even tell you how many different programs they've kind of come up with, and they haven't really implemented a single one of them. And that's why we've essentially doubled that wait list.
So they froze the wait list. Bruce, how could they do that? How could they get away with doing that? Bruce, former president of the OAC. You're on mute, Bruce. While he's Scott, how did this happen?
Highly technical.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's putting me back on mute.
That's okay. We can hear you now.
We can hear you.
So how did this happen? How does the government just? I mean, if people are getting treatment in a hospital, do they just take you off the wait list for your knee surgery or your? Does that happen? Is that illegal? What? How does this happen?
There's an enormous difference between the Ministry of Social Services and the Ministry of Health. Children, Community, and Social Services, let me take it from the other way. The Ministry of Health has a mission to give you health care, and it's not optional. If you go into a hospital, you will receive care. It's not like that with social services. Budgets can change, wait lists can happen. It's not what's called an as of right service. Healthcare is a right. Education is a right. If you take your child to a school and enroll them, they will accept them and they will give them an education. Not so in social services.
So Bruce, if they weren't folding new kids into the programs, what happened to the centers?
Bad things in most cases. We saw about 500 job losses at least, because that's only based on sort of the large 2- and 3-digit numbers that came to our attention. But I'm sure there were independent operators that took a hit as well. The problem was that if they were serving high needs kids, there's no way most parents could continue with that to support that level of program, given what the government was handing out. A 6-year-old kid that was getting a $60,000 program suddenly only gets $5,000 from the government. Then the parents can't, suddenly you've got a $55,000 a year expense. Most people can't handle that.
Carrie, tell me about some of the centers. So if kids were not going in, getting service plans and going into the centers, were they still fully funded? Were they partially empty? Did they empty? What happened to these DSO, direct service centers?
Was that for me, Karen?
Yeah,
So you're wondering what's happening with kids that,
I'm
Sorry,
saying
so-
that okay. If kids were leaving the program and new kids were not coming in, what happened to the centers? Were they still fully funded? Were they empty? Were they partially full?
well, we had a lot of things happen, right? Like, well, the money is following the kids. And if the kids aren't there or not being funded, I mean, unless there's people that can fill in those gaps with private funding, there's no one there. I mean, a lot of our private providers have years long wait lists for kids to come in, and they're reliant upon people coming and showing up with funding from the government. So that's a real problem when parents can't bridge that gap, as Bruce was talking about.
Laura, I want to go a little bit back in time. Laura Kirby-McIntosh. We mentioned the advisory, autism advisory panel in our trick or treat video that we posted earlier today. It's designed as a companion piece for this chat tonight. Laura, you served on the panel. Can you summarize what the recommendations were? She's also on mute. You're on mute, Laura. Is the crack operation that we run here at the Ontario Autism
Such
Coalition.
amateurs, I swear to God.
Second Macintosh on mute.
God,
I'm starting
hell
to
yeah.
see the pattern.
I feel like someone's trying to silence me. Okay, so Karen, you're gonna have to be patient because this
Steve Clark.
a long response. We recommended a lot of things. Our report was 64 pages long. And some of the recommendations have been implemented and some of them have not. So I want to start with the ones that have been implemented. We were quite adamant.
No, wait, I would like you to please, if you can, list the most important recommendations
Sure.
that came from the panel first.
Oh boy. So foundational services, meaning you have access to something while you're waiting. Early intervention services. So if your kid is between 12 and 48 months, you get to start with programs that might be like Jasper, Project Impact, Social ABCs. Viewers may have heard of those. We also recommended mental health support services and crisis services. That was something that I fought for really adamantly at the table. The big thing, though, I think that's of most interest to viewers tonight is core services. So in the old program, the only services that you could access were behavioral or ABA-based services. Our report recommended opening that up to including speech and language pathology and occupational therapy. And there are different views on whether that was a good thing. But for people who want choice in the type of therapy that their kid gets, generally it was seen as a good thing. We did recognize with the budget that we were given that we weren't going to be able to give everybody all of the therapy that was recommended. So we knew that there might be some kind of caps involved. But I will say, as a former panel member, looking at what has come out now from the ministry that involves age caps again for service and sort of limited dollar amounts depending on these arbitrary little categories that people are placed in, that moves away a little bit from our initial recommendations. And then the big one that I'm really upset about is the role of the care coordinator, who now seems to be a gatekeeper of how much funding a child gets, where if you read anyone's black and white t-shirt, we fought for needs-based therapy. So what we wanted was for the amount of therapy that a child got to be determined by a clinician. And maybe there would be sort of a maximum amount, but we wanted the final decision to rest with the clinician. And that is not where things have landed. And that means that as an organization, we have more work to do.
Yes, thanks, Laura. We're going to circle back to all of those things that Laura has itemized. Bruce, how many advisory panels have we had in the last chunk of years altogether in your long history with the Ontario Autism Program and its various derivations?
You want me to go back to like 2001, 2? What chunk of years?
How many panels, how many recommendation committees have there been?
There's-
Laura says 5. I
Eight.
stunted him.
I got
I
6.
stumped him.
Yeah.
It's a
Dr.
lot.
Bruce. Laura says 5. Did they make similar recommendations to the 2019 panel that Laura participated in?
No.
So these are new recommendations. Angela, you said, comme ci, comme ça. What do you say, Angela?
Well, some of the recommendations are the same in terms of core services, making sure that each child's unique needs are met, that there's no caps in terms of age. Those kinds of things are very similar. And that, I think that's something that advocates have been asking for across the board. Are there different nuances? Is there the addition of additional therapies? Yes. But when it comes to core, I think the message has always been the same. Give our children what is prescribed for them individually, and no caps, and do not base it on age or any other discriminatory variable. So I think that has been consistent.
Alina, unmute yourself while I ask this question. Alina, you're a scientist, right? You're the smart one here out of all these characters.
I don't know about that.
So we talk about clinical oversight a lot in the OAC.
Yes.
What the heck is that? What does that mean to you as a scientist?
So like on a really generally speaking, clinical oversight is what happens to make sure that the services that we and our families get are appropriate, effective, and safe, right? So, and that happens in a number of ways in our world. First is the accreditation of the professionals who give us this care. They go to school, they get trained, it's based on science, and this education and training and accreditation are ongoing to make sure that they're most up to date on the information in their field. So an example of that is like in the behavioral therapy world, we have BCBAs and RBTs. They have designations that they have to train for and get like licensed in through their professional organizations. Then more on a granular level, we have where our care plans, like our treatment plans for our family members, are overseen by one of these professionals. So, and in the example of a BCBA, if we have a child receiving EBA services, they have a behavioral treatment plan, and that has to be overseen by a currently accredited BCBA therapist. And that's the bare minimum. Like they have to have that in place.
Angela, you wanted to add something? Thank you, Alina. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention, Laura, today is the 2-year anniversary of the advisory panel report. It's been 2 years since the report came out.
It's almost like we did it on purpose.
It's almost like we did it on purpose. And I don't have a cat coming on to my
Not so
screen.
amateur
That's not
after
what's
all.
happening.
Scott Corbett, Laura mentioned the implementation of care coordinators. Why has the OAC been waving a red flag here?
Well, I mean, ultimately, the issue with it's not care coordinator is the issue. It's the way the government has decided to implement the care coordinator role. Lots of areas in healthcare, there's care coordinators. You see it all over the place. But in this particular case, they have all the power to make the decision of your funding allotment. And so ultimately what ends up happening, you answer all these questions with the care coordinator. They're like, all right, we've assessed you based on some tool, which they don't know. We don't know if this is like, actually an accredited tool, which professionals would actually say that this is a good way to actually attest to the level of care that somebody needs or not. They don't want to give that detail out, but they're going through a tool based on 1 day of training. And then they're saying, okay,
One
look
day,
at,
one day of training?
well, yeah, I mean, it kind of speaks to how robust is this tool. If you can come in on one day of training and then start assessing people and saying, okay, based on my interview of you, you're going to get this much money. You know, what does that really say about the tool? But ultimately, here's the deal, right? So they say you fall into this category. Then what you do is you go and you seek the treatment that you want. Maybe it's speech, ABA, whatever it is, right? You got to work within the funding allotment, which the care coordinator came up with. So a professional may end up saying, look, you need this much. You're like, sorry, I didn't get that much. So you have a choice. You have a choice. Look at, you can maybe take out a second mortgage and try to do that. Maybe that's not even possible. You may not have the ability to take out any money and do any of this stuff, and you just have to work within the confines of what they've given you. So that's what's egregious about the entire mechanism that they put in about the care coordinator.
Alina, you had something you wanted to mention something, and Laura, I'll get to you after. Alina,
Yeah,
what were you?
just wanted to tie in what I had said about clinical oversight to what Scott was saying, was that we have these people who have clinical oversight over treatment plan, but these care coordinators who are running contrary to what our clinical oversight might be saying our children need. And that's I think why you probably asked that question about clinical oversight.
Yeah, Laura, you're muted again.
Yeah, no, I'm back. I think the thing that angers me the most about this is that I've seen from literally day one of the panel meetings through to the end of our report, through to the implementation committee, and now the slow roll implementation of core services. I've seen a manipulation of language from our original report. If you go to page 27 of the Autism Program Advisory Panel report, you'll see that the job of the care coordinator included identifying the needs for support for families and to forecast the needs or the amount of funding. That was the word that we used. And we, like these panels, we fight over words. And really what we intended, what our recommendation was, that the care coordinator, of course, has to feed back to the ministry so that they have some kind of idea how many kids are coming through the system so they can manage churn, as they say. And we're like, okay, fine. You know what? The care coordinator can ballpark how much the kid is going to need. But we said, we want that forecast of the care coordinator to be subject to the review of a clinician. And they took that out. And that's not okay. That's why we still have to fight.
Carrie, there's two kinds of funding that people have received since the Ontario Autism Program was blown to smithereens. One is known as interim funding, and the other is was called the childhood budget. Can you explain the difference between these two?
Sure. There's actually not too much difference between the two. On February 6, 2019, that's when, well, the minister at the time, Lisa McLeod, stepped to a podium in a children's hospital and blew up our program. And at the time, like Scott and Bruce had mentioned, we had been waiting. Well, what had happened was we had a frozen wait list, and there were so many desperate families waiting for something to happen. So February 6th, they announced childhood budgets. And what was intended to happen initially was children under 6 would receive $20,000 and children over 6 would receive $5,000 per year. The idea is that this would continue throughout childhood to a maximum of what was it, $140,000 was the max that you could receive. So this devastated our community. Sure, there are absolutely kids within the community who would be well served by something within $20,000 or children with very few needs, maybe $5,000. But what the government was failing to acknowledge and recognize was that there are children with incredibly profound, severe need who require care for the duration of their life, not their childhood. And they were going to be cut off from funding based on their birthday. But then the other thing that's going on here is that we're not recognizing that children's needs fluctuate, right? Angela was talking about autism being a spectrum. Just because you're here on day 1 doesn't mean you're going to be here on day 20,000. So we need, as parents, that assurance that as our children's needs change, the funding that can be accessed can be changed so that their services can be changed. So the childhood budget system was 20,000 under the age of 6 and 5,000 over the age of 6 to a maximum of 140,000 over your childhood. And we protested that. And what ended up changing was they switched it to interim one-time funding when they promised to change the program entirely. And so the interim one-time funding is the same format essentially, but it was a one-time payment versus continued payments as an interim plan.
Sarah, I'd like to fold you in. Carrie and Sarah, you're both free to answer this question. Many families receive funding for the very first time in their child's lives. And there was a lot of confusion in the community, not to mention the fact that during COVID, the bar for how to use funding kept changing. Can you tell us, Sarah, will you start? Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm in Northern Ontario in the greater city of Sudbury, and our capacity for services was decimated. And so people were getting funding and nowhere to spend it. And so you add the pandemic to that, and it was a perfect storm. So ideally, if you were one of, and this sounds horrible, but if you were one of the lucky few who had a care team already, you were working with an ABA therapist, an occupational therapist, an SLP, doing speech, then you could use that. But the wait lists were so long that many people were coming to the end of their budget and not being able to spend. And that's even if they were able to find somewhere that they could spend it because of capacity issues and wait list. And here in Northern Ontario, we do have a lack of clinicians. Like I said, that's where the capacity issue comes in. And so you're looking at some people who would have to reach out, do a virtual consultation to find out what types of supports they could even purchase for their kids to try and help them a little bit in the interim while they wait on these incredibly long wait lists to try and get the therapeutic needs met that they need for their kids.
Carrie, we managed an awful lot of inquiries about. One second, Bruce. Carrie, we juggled an awful lot of inquiries about interim funding, and there was tension. There was tension in the community, which does happen. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure, it's really a hard thing to talk about, Karen, to be honest, because there are so many families that have different opinions as to how they want to care and support care for and support their children. But what it comes down to is that the Ontario Autism Program was intended to be a clinical program, and COVID really shifted that. Because of capacity issues, and those existed, as Sarah explained, like northern, rural, remote areas where you just don't have access to clinicians, period. But COVID, closed DSO centers who, they were no longer taking kids in person, and other people just didn't want to be out of their homes or couldn't be out of their homes, or private centers closed their doors because of lockdown. So what the government did was allowed for families to purchase things. I believe the initial wording was to help achieve the developmental goals for your child. So we have to consider also that we have kids that are out of school as well. So sort of educational materials, things that could help your kids grow and learn and thrive when they didn't have access to school, didn't have access to therapy because of COVID, but maybe not anyway either. It was so hard, Karen, because people just didn't know. And I think that's what this comes down to, is that we have families who had access to a needs-based program under the Liberal government previously. My son, I have 2 kids on the spectrum. My son is one of these legacy kids. He is still receiving needs-based therapy. It's not even a huge amount. it has been lowering over the years, which is the idea. That's the goal. It changes. We can't go up in our hours, but he gets needs-based therapy. And this is the problem, right? Is when you have families who are given a diagnosis and it's like being thrown into the lake. Like you don't know what to do. There's nobody with answers, nowhere to turn, and you don't know is the point. So when you're given money without direction, or you're never given the opportunity to access needs-based therapy, what the hell do you do with that money? Maybe you buy a trampoline because, hey, your kid really likes to jump and maybe they're a little calmer when they do so. And hey, maybe that buys you enough time to go to the bathroom and pee. But at the end of the day, that's not clinical supports. And what we've been trying to do is educate families or give families some direction, right? To help them understand what they're missing out on. Because these clinical programs that my child accesses provides my family with an amazing amount of support, a global amount of support. They help with schools, they help at home. My child's goals are being met. He is thriving because we have access to this. So when I'm standing out on a front lawn in front of an MPP's office with a sign in my hand, it isn't because my kid has everything that he needs and I don't want to lose that. It's that I don't want all of these 50,000 other kids to miss out on that same opportunity that I have.
Yeah.
Or that my son had.
I think it's fair to say that the OAC has felt between a rock and a hard place on this issue. Bruce, you had something you wanted to add.
Well, it's now even more relevant when you hear Carrie's point of view. Two moms, one in Northern Ontario and another in Southern Ontario. It's a province-wide problem, capacity, and it has always been there. But there's an interesting thing about the damage that this government has done, and to the jobs that were there, but to the jobs that might have been there. When we had clinical oversight services under the Liberal plan, I took calls from companies in the United States that wanted to expand up into Canada because now they realized, they can probably be paid a profitable amount. Well, those calls have dried up. It's not there. And what becomes worse in the savings that it is savings, you get your childhood budget, you get your interim one-time funding, unspent money from one is then deducted from what you get under the next. But for families that are leaving, anything that they haven't spent is clawed back to by the government, never to be seen again.
Angela, you
So
wanted
Carrie's
to...
situation where the hours were going down, that money was going then to another kid.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the case anymore.
No.
It just vanishes.
Angela, you wanted to add something, but please do. And then I'd like to move on to the pilot project.
I just wanted to add on to what Bruce was saying. Yes, there were consulting companies that wanted to come up to Canada, like from the US or ABA companies, but don't forget that college programs were also canceled after the announcement. So we don't have these future therapists coming in. So not only has current capacity been decimated, but future capacity is going to be so difficult to build because we don't have these new younger therapists coming into the field.
Laura, let's fold you in here. There have been 600 kids who've been selected for the province's pilot program. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me about that? And then Angela, could you weigh in on tiered funding?
Well, I'm not sure what you want me to talk about.
Well, what is the pilot program?
So all the discussion that we had at the panel about creating an assessment tool that could be used, what ultimately is being used by the care coordinator, in order for a program to be valid, it has to be tested first. And so the government said that we will do a pilot project with 600 kids. We will test this assessment tool that the care coordinators are going to use. We'll bring these kids into core funding. We'll assess, we'll see how it goes. And if it's good, we'll roll it out to everybody else. The curious thing is that once they started sending letters out inviting families to become part of the pilot project, a lot of families turned them down. And I think that's a testament to just how low the trust level is in the community with this government. They were like, it sounds great. No, don't trust it. Don't want to do it. So it took them much, much longer than expected to get the 600 actually enrolled. So we know that that program is up and rolling. I'm not sure that we know that anyone has received funding yet. Carrie or Sarah, maybe you can correct me. Has money actually flowed?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. That's news.
Not a lot, but
I
yes.
don't imagine a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
But I mean, here's the crazy thing, right? The pilot project was supposed to start in April with 600 kids. And then the initial commitment was, and by the end of 2021, we'll have 8,000 kids on top of the 600 who will come into core services. Well, it's almost Halloween and they've only just started with 600. How in the hell, pardon my language, but it's Halloween, are they going to get 8,000 in? And if they don't, that's another, it's another deadline that the government set for itself because it gets to pick and choose its deadlines. And they haven't met a single one of them.
None of them? They haven't met any of their deadlines?
This
No.
government,
Angela?
Ever.
does
Never?
anybody
Seriously?
here remember the government saying the new program, including core services, would be up and running in April of 2020? This room isn't big enough for my rage about.
Just as
about the
an
delay.
FYI, Angela and I made a 17-minute presentation that is a brief history of the highlights and the lowlights of the forward reign and management of the Ontario Autism Program. Most of that data
Mismanagement.
came from the incredible Scott Corbett and his incredible, wonderful research. Okay, so tiered funding, Angela and Carrie, what the heck is that?
Carrie, did you want to take it or do you want me to take it?
You can go ahead. I mean,
Okay, well,
it's going to make me angry.
okay.
It's all right.
Me too. I'm just going to
Yeah.
jump in and say,
You
it sure
chime
as hell
in.
isn't what we recommended on the panel.
You chime in. So basically, Carrie described the one-time interim funding, right? It was the 20,000 for younger children and 5,000 for older children. So the basic program now is that plan, but on steroids. So instead of there being 2 categories, there are 12 categories instead. So there's 12 tiers. And for some reason, there's a minimum, which I don't understand in each of those categories. But more importantly, there's a maximum. And whenever there's a maximum, that is extremely discriminatory for kids who have higher needs. All I can say is tiered funding does not work for any child, high needs or low needs, but it is especially discriminatory against children with higher support needs. And that's what I'm going to say. And that's what this government has designed against the advice of the advisory panel report.
Carrie, do you have anything to add?
Simply that, just in the same vein as what Angela was saying, like we have these categories. It is absolutely the childhood budget scheme and the interim one-time funding scheme on steroids. It's just taking the same thing and expanding it. And it's going to do great disservice to a great amount of kids who have fluctuating needs. But again, like, we have to continue to say these things out loud. It's the kids with severe needs, with profound autism, who will need support for the rest of their lives, that are getting cut off at the knees by saying, you're done because you turned 10, or you're done because you turned 6. We're eliminating hours or days of your support that you will need.
Let's
For
start
the
moving
rest of
up north.
I'm sorry, Karen, I wanted to add to that actually, just because Carrie mentioned something. What this government has functionally done is created a bottleneck. We have a bunch of children that haven't received any intervention for up to 8 years now, because they were waiting up to 4 years on the wait list, then it was frozen. Now it's going to be about 4 years of delay. There's an entire generation that are going to need so much support. They're going to be older and they're going to be cut off at a maximum, which is 100% not going to meet their needs. And the government hasn't thought about this entire generation of children.
And how is it fair, right, Angela? How is it fair that children age out of a category while they're on a wait list that the government imposed?
I'm sorry,
How
my
is that
hand,
fair?
my hand isn't working, but to echo what Carrie just said, particularly in the north, our kids are diagnosed later.
Yes.
So that is incredibly discriminatory to kids in the north who can't even forget about the long diagnostic wait lists, forget about the long wait lists for therapy. You're now imposing these maximums based on age when our kids aren't even getting diagnosed at that age or getting on the lists.
Yeah.
So
And females.
And how about
absolutely.
girls? Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
we're
And
gonna-
girls even later. So the numbers, it's devastating. It's devastating for everyone.
It is. Thank you, Sarah. Before we move up north, I want to ask our resident epidemiologist. Did I say that word right, Alina? Did I
Yeah,
say it
Good
right?
job.
I didn't
You did
even
it.
know what that was until I met Alina last year. I know. Has COVID benefited the Florida government where the autism program is concerned?
Oh, yeah.
How
Yeah. Well, it's basically given them like carte blanche. Like it's a huge ticket to stall what they were working on. It's, oh, the pandemic is happening. We aren't going to work on this project right now. There's too many other things going on. It's just let them
Scapegoat. Scapegoat.
scapegoat. It's let them push their own self-imposed deadlines back further and further and further. And as soon as they go, yeah, but COVID, and it also has through, different programs that they're trying to fill in the gaps right now. It's allowing them to dump a lot of money to make it look like they're spending meaningfully when really they aren't, because a lot of the funding being spent right now isn't getting to families for therapy and services that their family members need. So yeah, they totally benefited from
So
that.
Tony, are we just
Karen,
bleeding?
forgive
are we-
me, but there's one other aspect to that delay
Yeah,
that doesn't have specifically to do with the therapy, but it's meant yet another year and a half to let newer families normalize this crap. And that's really scary to
point.
me.
Yeah.
It's really frightening to me when I talk to new parents and I use the term needs-based funding and they say, what's that?
yeah.
It
Tony
scares the
Tony
hell
and
out of me.
Scott, are we just bleeding money then?
Tony and Scott,
Yep.
yeah, we're bleeding money. We're just, the money's, well, first of all, they're not even, Scott, they're not even spending the whole budget, right? Like they budgeted so much money, and we're shorting on all that. It's not being spent in the right places. I don't know, Scott's the numbers, definitely not spending the whole 600 million that they keep repeating over and over and over again. And there's thousands of kids waiting for services when the money's just sitting there.
So just so you all know, Tony's having technical difficulties. He's not drunk.
Oh
Thanks,
yeah,
Tony.
you can't hear me?
No, you were very slow for a moment, and then you was like that. It was
I think-
hilarious. Scott, are we bleeding money?
Bleeding money. The short answer is like we don't know. I mean, the issue is there's the lack of transparency at the end of the day, right? So so it's true that in 2019, they came back and said, well, you know, there was all this money that wasn't spent, so on and so forth. But the government's like, well, that money is really on the books. It's just not going to be spent during the fiscal year, and we're just going to carry it forward. But here's so when they list these, the actual expenditures, the government, and when I say lack of transparency, it's a one-liner. It says autism, and it says this is how much the budget is, and this is how much has been spent. So it's only through, you know, an audit that you actually get to see what that breakdown is and where they're spending it. But we do know this, right? So they do these updates, and we know that that only $93 million was spent in the first quarter of this fiscal year, right? So if you break that out to quarters over the course of the year, they were well underspending. $600 million budget, we're only going to be around $370 odd million being spent there. So we just don't know where the money is going. And it would, I think it would be reasonable to say, given the fact that they haven't been able to launch an actual program and get all these 8,000 net new kids into therapy like they said they're going to, it's reasonable to expect that they are going to absolutely underspend the budget.
Let's move up north. We have two ladies, the Wicked Witches of the North here, Sarah and Lena. In northern communities, what were waitlists like before Ford took the reins?
So I would like to say that we are the good witches of the North, not the wicked witches of the North. But if we want to talk waitlists, I think we should start with diagnostic waitlists. Here in the Sudbury area alone, we were looking at 2 to 3 years for diagnostic times. And so if you wanted to be diagnosed any sooner to get on that very long wait list for services, you were looking to pay out of pocket. And that is upwards of $1,500 to $3,500. Most families couldn't afford that. So they were stuck with waiting. Now, as far as the service wait lists, they were long. For example, my son has been waiting for services since July 4th, 2017. And unfortunately, that's the norm up here.
So that
And
was
we
before
haven't
Ford
been,
was elected.
yeah, and we haven't
Yeah.
been waiting the longest. So wait lists were long. Some people were coming off. But after the wait list was secretly frozen, we just kept being told by our regionals, it's 3 months, it's 6 months, don't worry, services are coming. That's why the announcement by she who will remain nameless
Thank you.
in February 2019 was so devastating. We're being told they're coming, they're coming, they're coming, and you secretly froze the wait list? Yeah, absolutely. Alina?
What was that like, Alina, when you understood that your daughter was on a frozen wait list? What is that like?
Well, just prior to that, we found out that here in our part of Ontario, Northwestern Ontario, where we had one regional, they had a list of names just over 300 long, and 4 to 5 kids were coming off that list per year. So
4
I
to
had
5
already
a
done
year.
math.
So 4 or 5 out of 300 kids were coming off the list. This is before Ford.
Per year.
Okay.
So, we had already resigned ourselves to the fact that it probably wasn't going to happen anytime soon. But we saw signs coming before Lisa made that announcement. We saw things were starting to unravel. And then it happened. And it prompted a lot of families up here to organize and create advocacy groups up here too.
Interim, can I just ask a huge favor of everyone who's speaking? Can we just agree, please, not to mention that woman's name ever again? Because I get a terrible cramp
apologize,
anytime
Bruce.
any one of you does.
I apologize.
Lisa McLeod?
Thank you.
Don't say.
Oh,
Lisa McLeod.
Does she
got
her in the mirror all bloody after?
Say it out loud. Lisa McLeod, Lisa McLeod, Lisa McLeod. Alina, what about French-speaking Ontario? What's it like for the Francophones?
Not good. There aren't a lot of services available, but I'll let Sarah answer that because she knows more about it.
Sarah,
than I
please.
do.
Yeah, absolutely. So as people know, there's a large Francophone population here in Northern Ontario, and there are limited Francophone services in our area alone. We have 3 as options. One no longer taking on clients at this time, and the other 2 with waitlists. And forget about comprehensive service. So though it's a big issue up here, it's not actually just unique to Northern Ontario. People all across the province who are looking for Francophone services are struggling.
Carrie?
Even in Ottawa, even
Yeah,
in
Carrie,
Ottawa.
do you have
And-
some insights about that?
well, yeah, like thinking, where are the French speaking Ontarians? I mean, there's a huge population. Like we're slammed right up against Quebec there. It is not easy to find French services in Ottawa. And what a lot of people relied on for French service was through the DSOs. So through CHIO here in Ottawa, which just doesn't exist anymore, right? So it's a very big problem.
And
Okay, moving
Creates a
people
lot of
have
barriers for families.
Absolutely. And people have a right to be able to access therapies in their first language. Like you look at a family who has a child who's completely nonverbal, but they are a Francophone speaking household. How do you get that communication skills when you only speak French and you can only access, if you could access services, for the most part in English?
Makes me wonder about Indigenous peoples. Does anyone have any information about that?
I know that in our region, a lot of families access services through the same services we do. So there are some providers who are Indigenous, but not nearly enough.
The panel that I was part of made extensive recommendations about supporting Indigenous families. They start on page 22 of our report. I have yet to hear from the ministry whether any of those have actually been implemented.
There's so many families on a wait list at one of our providers who is Indigenous that they're spilling over into just the mainstream services here in Thunder Bay too. So we
Moving back up north, when childhood budgets were introduced, what happened to Northern families?
Well, I mean, there's huge problems, like Sarah was saying earlier, in accessing providers of any kind in Northwestern Ontario. There's some communities where people are driving hours and hours and hours a week to try and access basic services. Like,
So what kind of
speech
land
language
area are we talking about here?
I actually looked up the size of Northern Ontario prior to this meeting, and it is over 806,000 kilometers square.
Just a walk in the park, right?
But Sarah, remind me,
In hours? Like
Oh, in
our friend
hours, so-
Adriana, how many hours does she have to drive to get to her therapy center?
so our friend from Manitouwadge
Yeah.
would have to drive to Thunder Bay for therapy, and it's 4 hours one way. And there's no big city in between that 4 hours. There's like maybe a few small towns, but most of it is thick, dense boreal forest on dangerous highways that are not maintained to the same standards that highways are in Southern Ontario.
And
And they were
how-
doing this drive in the winter several times a week just to access a few hours of speech language pathology.
A slog.
Yeah,
How
absolutely.
are Northern families using their interim funding?
Any way they can, if they can even access it. One of the problems here in Thunder Bay is a lot of families aren't even applying to the OAP. We implore these families to please apply, get your name on the list. I know it's a wait, but we got to do it. And in the meantime, families are spending funding as they can. A lot of families aren't spending it at all because they can't find services. They don't get Amazon deliveries to their communities, and that money's getting sent back.
Absolutely. There are a lot of remote and rural areas throughout Northern Ontario, which makes it a lot more difficult to access those people. When we were under a regional reign, we had CCR, which was Child and Community Resources, excuse me, and they covered all the way from Sudbury right through to Kenora Rainy River. So that's a huge area. And right now with the funding, you can only use a percentage of it to spend and use on travel. We
You
need
shouldn't
travel
even have
grants.
to.
They need travel
You
grants. We should
shouldn't
be
even have to.
absolutely to have to go into that. Again, you want to talk about a discriminatory northern issue. I think travel is a really, really big one. And
Yeah.
so just, you know, when we're talking about spending the budgets, yeah, some people just can't spend the budgets because there's nowhere to access. And you're just sitting on wait lists.
So
And
are,
that money-
would services, yes, would services up north just then be more expensive?
They
than-
are, yes.
Than
for
down
that.
south
Yes.
in urban centers?
Absolutely, yes. The cost of travel, not just of families to and from providers, but when providers finally decide to send like a clinician out into the field and service like a small cluster of communities, it costs them more money, right? The people get paid for driving and gas and lodging, and it's a huge cost. So-
We're going to wind down in 8 minutes. Laura, you wanted to add something quickly, please?
Just quickly on the cost of, well, two things. One, a privilege recognition moment. Sarah, when you said, we can't just get Amazon delivery at our door. I take that for granted living in Mississauga. I ordered some school related books for a neighborhood child the other day. Boom, they came in 24 hours. Just, you know, those of us that live in the South, we really forget sometimes. At the panel though, even though I'm a Toronto girl, I fought really, really hard for Northern families, and we got something in the recommendations. For those of you taking notes at home, this is on page 24, but we said policies for compensating travel costs should be developed. And again, no word on whether that's happened.
I've been
But
asking.
yeah,
Have nothing.
and to the bureaucrats and the Conservative Party staffers that are watching this, don't think for a second that we're going to forget.
No.
Okay. And also, how do you sleep at night? But that's another story.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Tony.
Tony.
Saying
All
that,
right,
Laura,
I'd like
it was
to,
actually
circle back to the wait list before we wind down. And poor Tony, don't think that we've been ignoring you, Tony. We're saving you for the end. We're saving you for our big finish. Scott, Angela, maybe even Bruce. Let's go back to the wait lists. Last year, the Auditor General revealed that 1/3 of the Ontario Autism Program money was not spent on the program in 2019. Where did the money go? Angela?
It went back into the government coffers. We don't know where the money went. We know that about 174 million was not spent in fiscal year of 2019. As a result of that, the second minister, Smith, can I say that one? Promised to spend.
Yeah, not as big a cramp.
Okay. He promised to spend 1.2 billion over 2 fiscal years because of the underspend. But we know from the FAO report that they spent about 600 million this past fiscal. But that's the FAO report. The Auditor General report for this previous fiscal should be out in December sometime, and that's when we'll know what was actually spent in the previous fiscal. But when the money doesn't get spent, it just goes back into their coffers. Where it's spent, we don't know. They don't share that with us.
Scott, Bruce, do you happen to know how many families are using their interim budgets for therapeutic services? Can you
There's
care
no
to
way
take
to
a
know.
guess?
There's no way to know.
You don't know. So we don't know where the money's going. We don't know who got it,
No.
how much was spent. We don't know.
When it comes back, if it's not used, like sent out to begin with, then it just goes back into general revenue, and it reduces the amount on the deficit line of the budget.
What about clawed back funds that haven't been used? What happens to that money?
Same thing, except unlike hospitals where, you know, patients come in using varying amounts of services, and if you're staying in the hospital on some days you will use more or less funding. They're really good at reallocating funding. If it doesn't get used on one thing, they'll use it on another. And they're really good at doing that. The Ministry of Community, Children, Community, and Social, they don't think that way. They look at a year. A good example would be the ODSP program, the Ontario Disability Support Program. And oh yeah, for anybody who didn't know jargony, when Angela mentioned FAO, that's the Financial Accountability Office. Anyway.
A reminder to check that
ODSP
history that Angela and I put together for you.
Okay, just making sure. But with ODSP, a person gets the basic amount, they have X number of clients, and they spend that much. Maybe they get the top up for a residence. Maybe they get an additional top up by a service animal. But it's this level of funding for that number of people equals this, add the lines, that's the program budget. And that's how they think. And that's why they want little pigeonholes for age and a severity that they determine with their bogus made up crap survey. But that's the difference. And it just goes back into general revenues unspent. I'll bet you money right now that people that haven't reconciled their second round of one-time funding, I'll bet you it's at least half of them. And I'll bet you that that's where the other $15 million in underspend from what Scott worked out. You know, we know about 174, but I think your estimate was 2.25, right?
That's right.
I'll bet you that's where
So
the
you've
other
got
50
some work to
million
do,
is.
Scott, huh? You got to put your research hat on. Get
It's-
going on that, eh?
Can we just pause for a second and recognize the supreme irony of the phrase, the second batch of interim one-time funding?
No, 2 times.
I guess
Tony-
it wasn't one time.
Tony, I'm so sorry that
Touche.
we've neglected you this entire hour. Don't take it personally.
I'm
You have
offended.
met with the deputy minister, and at one meeting, I recall that she indicated that the public had not been raising any concerns with them.
Oh, of course, because they don't pick up their damn phone. You know what I mean? So yeah, we've been in plenty of meetings, and we bring to them all the concerns that we gather from the community, and we pour our hearts out every time, and they look at us like deer looking into headlights and say to us, you know, we're just not hearing this from the community. They're just so surprised. Although, like Laura said, there's plenty of staffers tonight watching this, guarantee you. Hi, I hope you're taking notes, because these are very smart people and you can learn a few things from them. So anyways, okay, we took that information and we said, okay, that they're not hearing from us. And so we decided, as you guys saw, that we decided to do a little email campaign for people that are not receiving their second round of funding. And they, you know, applied in March, April, whatever. So that list of people that you have Fullerton, you have her assistant Mason, you have Jennifer Morris as the deputy assistant minister, and you have Sarah Hardy, and we have people doing their MPP and CCing me to keep them accountable, and we're keeping track of it, because you know what, next time they say that we don't hear anything from anybody, we're going to say we have a list of hundreds of families that are contacting you and they're still not getting the results they want. Now, it seems like the email, and I've had feedback from the ministry that they have loud and clear heard our voices and they're trying to work out the one-time funding. But I'm urging everybody on the OAC watching this, telling a friend, find that email list. We'll post it again.
It's in the announcements section on the
Yeah.
main OAC page.
Make sure you add your own MPP to it. And you know what? Tell them your story. They need to hear from us. We're about to make some big noise. The province is going to hear the Ontario Autism Coalition. We have some big plans coming. So we're about to make some noise. So I want a big shout out to Sean Staden. He's not on here tonight, but he is like a powerhouse on the Political Action Committee, along with all the other members on the political action committee, and all the board. We're gonna do some great things. We have a great strategic plan that the executive have put together, and we're gonna make some noise. So we're looking for all the help we can get. So yeah, let's do this, guys.
So how can families get involved if they want to, Tony?
Well, I think what's our email? It's the
PAC,
PAC
Political Action
at
Committee.
Ontario Autism Coalition. So if you're interested in helping out, and if you have any special skills, even if you don't, we'll find something for you. We're just looking for willing and able bodies. We're putting the list together. It's been a little slower. We've had to, get through some paperwork, but that's all Bruce and the gang have been taking care of that. So just email us.
We should, forgive me,
Yeah,
but
that's for you,
paperwork,
Bruce.
people will want to know.
You tell
We
them.
have now submitted, it's not going to, we have submitted an application for third-party advertiser status during the lead up to the provincial election.
That's
It's in there.
amazing.
I'm waiting
It's
on our
amazing.
approval.
And that means we're going to be officially making noise.
We can spend money.
Yes,
Carrie?
and we're going to spend it.
Carrie, last comment before we start running down?
Sorry, Karen, I just wanted to, in the same vein of what Tony was saying in terms of our email campaign, look for the messages from me. We are posting to encourage people to email. These people at these meetings are saying they are not hearing from families. They need to hear from us. This is not just about getting your next installment of funding. I have plenty of people that have been messaging asking, like, what should I say? Are you upset? Say that. You don't have to be waiting for another installment of funding. You don't have to have been waiting for months either. If you're upset for any reason, if you're unsatisfied with waiting for years upon years upon years for a discriminatory therapy program, email. Go to the announcements like Bruce said. You'll see a bunch of posts from me. We're going to keep doing this with Mary Lee Fullerton, our minister, her assistant Mason, Jeremy Roberts, who is her parliamentary assistant. We have Jennifer Morris, who is the deputy assistant minister, and Sarah Hardy, who is in charge of the OAP. These are the folks that need to hear from us. They just need to know that you're upset. It's not okay. If they don't hear from us, they think it's fine.
Yeah.
Silent.
So
right.
That's another
and
thing COVID's done. Yeah, CC me. They think because we're not standing out in front of their offices. I've had plenty of feedback. Well, they think, oh, you know what? The community's happy. We're not happy. We can't make the noise because we've had to social distance and we've been creative. But you know what? Restrictions have lifted. I encourage everybody, if you can, even if it's just yourself. We know Ashley's out there with her cardboard cut or her plastic board. She's going out there standing all by herself whenever. So anything. I don't know. Let's just get this done.
Thank you so much.
Bang on. They see the light when they feel the heat.
We're going to wind down, Bruce. We're winding down. So as you can see, OAC, this is a cross section of the belly of the beast. This is only a portion of the activists and advocates that we have in the OAC. Our brain trust is phenomenal. Thank you for joining us tonight. We hope this information was helpful for you. Parents out there, if you're new to the scene, a lot of this information may be been upsetting for you. And there's a lot to take in. So remember to check out our Ontario Autism Program. Is this a trick or a treat video that Angela and I put together to help you figure out this timeline and get things into perspective? It's on our YouTube page. We are not a support group, but we support one another. Angela, any final words?
I wanted Sarah to say a little thing first. It's her first live and she wanted to shout out and then I will say a few final words.
Okay, please, Sarah, quickly. We're done.
Oh, absolutely, Karen. I understand that your job is to keep us on time. I just wanted to say thank you so much for the opportunity. It was my first live. It was relatively painless. And I could not be sitting here with more amazing people. These people have become like family out of necessity. And I am so thankful. If there's one positive, it's for all of these people sitting here. So thank you.
We feel the same way about you, Sarah. Very much so. Angela.
Thank you, Sarah. And you took some of the words out of my mouth. I just wanted to say, you know, how wonderful the board is, how smart everybody is. And honestly, we have to move forward. We don't have a choice. This is, as Karen said, we are an advocacy group. We need to support each other. We need to move forward. Let's do this. We know what we're doing. Let's all unite. There is only unity here tonight. We are working very, very hard for all of you. Come join us, join our efforts. Please help us. We have to do this because we are fighting for our children. And I want to thank you for watching tonight. And I want to thank you for being a part of the whole advocacy movement. Thank you, thank you. And thank you, Karen, for being an amazing, amazing host.
Thank you, Karen.
And a big shout out to Lily for being our online representative tonight. She is the smartest
you,
one
Lily.
in any room.
Thank you, Lily.
Yay,
Don't
Lily.
despair. Don't despair. We ain't going nowhere. Good night, OAC.
Night.
Goodbye. Good night.
Thank you.